I'm going to take over his company. I'm going to ruin him. And when I'm finished, he won't even know what hit him.
Imagine this. Austin Brown grew up in the country, where mornings started before the sun was fully awake, and the road dust clung to your shoes like it wanted to come home with you. The kind of place where people greeted you by name and watched your life unfold in small, predictable chapters. Paige Carter grew up there too. They went to the same small school, walked the same dusty roads, and learned early what it meant to dream in a place where dreaming wasn't encouraged. After graduation, life narrowed. Jobs were scarce, opportunities even scarcer. Austin watched people accept routines they never spoke about choosing. He didn't judge them. He understood. Still, something in him refused to settle. One late January morning, standing at the edge of the road in air that felt clean and unfinished, he told himself softly, "I have to build something." And he left for town. Town life humbled Austin quickly. He worked wherever someone needed hands loading trucks, making deliveries, learning schedules, learning delays, learning why things failed when people rushed. He watched patterns, learned the weight of timing, and noticed the same painful gap everywhere. Farmers had produce ready, city markets had demand, but the connection between them was messy and unreliable. So Austin built a bridge, a logistics and distribution company focused on moving agricultural goods from rural communities to urban markets' clean routes. Reliable timing, careful handling, honest coordination. He mapped routes himself, built schedules that respected people's time, and showed up when he said he would. The company grew steadily, solid, dependable, real. Austin didn't forget Paige. She was organized, observant, careful with words, the kind of person who read something twice, not out of fear, but responsibility. As the business grew, Austin realized he needed someone who could protect what he was building when pressure arrived. On Thursday, March 7th, he drove back to the country and asked Paige to join in operations and contract review. Paige didn't answer immediately. She asked about structure, accountability, and safeguards. Austin answered honestly. 2 days later, on Saturday, March 9th, she called him. "I'll come," she said, "but I'm not coming to decorate success. I'm coming to protect what you're building." Austin exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "That's what I need," he said. Paige arrived, ready to work. She observed first, then quietly tightened systems files, checklists, processes, catching small errors before they became disasters. Austin noticed the office felt calmer when Paige was involved. Some nights, the office emptied without either of them realizing. On April 3rd, Austin glanced up and saw Paige still at her desk. "You're still here," he said. "So are you," she replied. They went back to work, but something had softened. Familiarity was returning under weight, under time. They didn't call it a date. They just went to eat. It was a small place that stayed open late, the kind with warm yellow lights and booths worn smooth by time. The air smelled like food that took its time, and the world outside the windows felt far away. They talked while waiting, about school, about growing up, about teachers whose names still came easily, about the road that led out of town and why they both took it. Paige laughed when Austin reminded her of something she used to say back then. "I can't believe you remember that," she said. "I remember a lot," Austin replied, then stopped himself. Paige didn't tease him, she just smiled, soft, thoughtful. When he dropped her home, the night was quiet. Paige stood at the door with her keys in her hand. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "Get some rest," Austin replied. She went inside, smiling. Austin sat in his car for a moment before driving away, letting the quiet stay with him longer than usual. That night, lying in bed, he stared at the ceiling and realized he hadn't thought about work once since leaving the restaurant. By the time it happened again, it no longer felt accidental. Another late evening, another stack of papers that refused to be finished during daylight. Paige sat at her desk reviewing a document, shoulders slightly tense, eyes focused in that way that told Austin she had been pushing herself longer than she would admit. Austin walked over and stopped behind her. He leaned just enough to see what she was reading, close enough that she could feel him there without touching. Paige glanced up and smiled. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to understand how you think," Austin said. She laughed quietly. "Well, good luck." Austin smiled, but he didn't step away right away. They stayed like that a moment longer than necessary. Not awkward, not uncertain, comfortable. And when he finally moved back to his desk, Austin knew something had shifted. He felt it the way you feel a change in weather before the sky admits it. That night at home, he lay awake longer than usual, Paige's voice replaying in his head. "I don't want to mess this up," he said quietly into the dark. He called her the next week. His voice sounded careful, like he was stepping onto ground he wanted to respect. "I was wondering," he said, "would you like to go out with me?" Paige paused. "Yes," she said. On Friday, May 10th, he picked her up himself. When she opened the door, Austin noticed everything. He looked at her like she was the only woman on earth. He looked at her dress, the way she'd done her hair, the familiar scent that always made him feel steadier than he expected. "You look really nice," he said. Paige smiled. "Thank you." They went to the park. It was quiet there, the kind of quiet that makes room for conversation without forcing it. They walked slowly, not trying to reach anywhere in particular. When the air turned cool, Austin slipped off his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. "I want you comfortable," he said. Paige looked at him for a moment, then pulled the jacket closer around herself. They reached the swings. "You trust me?" Austin asked, standing behind her. "Yes," she replied. He placed her on the swing and pushed gently, careful not to startle her. Paige laughed open and unguarded. Austin watched her, something warm settling deep in his chest. "You make me happy," he said, the words surprising even him. Paige turned to look at him, the swing slowing. "I like this," she said softly. And standing there, watching her smile, Austin knew he was already past the point of pretending this was casual. By June, the rhythm between them had settled into something familiar. They didn't announce plans. They returned to the same places, the same restaurant with the warm lights, the same park paths that curved without hurry, the same quiet moments in the car before saying goodnight. On Saturday, June 15th, Austin drove them back to the park. The sun was low enough to soften everything. The air carried that early summer calm that made time feel less demanding. They walked slowly side by side, hands brushing often enough to matter. They reached the swings. Austin stopped. Paige turned to him, curious. "Paige," he said, voice steady but careful, "I don't want to rush anything. But I also don't want to pretend this is nothing." He took her hand fully this time. "I think about you when I wake up," he said. "And when I leave work. And when I lie down at night." Paige's breath caught, just slightly. "I don't want this to be undefined," he continued. "I want to choose you clearly." He paused, then asked it simply. "Will you be my girlfriend?" Paige held his gaze for a moment, long enough for him to feel the weight of the question. Then she smiled. "Yes," she said. Austin pulled her into him without thinking. Paige hugged him back fully, intentionally, her arms settling like they had found their place. They didn't say much after that. They didn't need to. Nothing about work changed overnight. The company still demanded long hours. Deadlines still crept into evenings. But the difference was how those nights felt now. Paige stayed late again one evening, papers stacked neatly beside her. "You sure you're okay staying?" Austin asked. She smiled. "I don't mind." They worked quietly for a while. Then Austin closed his laptop. "Dinner," he said. She laughed. "You didn't even ask." "I don't need to." They returned to the same small place. The waitress recognized them now, pulled out Paige's chair before Austin could ask. Dessert came, and Austin lifted his fork playfully. Paige shook her head. "You're impossible." He leaned back, smiling. "You like it," she did. Later, back at the office, Paige reviewed another document while Austin stood behind her, sleeves rolled up, reading over her shoulder. "You do that a lot," she said softly. "I look out for you," he replied. She smiled and went back to her work. On a walk after dinner, Austin tucked her hair behind her ear without thinking. She leaned into him on benches, rested her head lightly against his shoulder. "I feel really cared for," she said one night. "You are," Austin replied. "I don't ever want you to question that." Paige believed him because he showed it, again and again. The way how Austin showed her love, it was like no other, and slowly both of them were falling for each other. The pressure of business didn't announce itself. It just crept in. Austin, sitting at his desk one evening, noticed that profits were thinning as competitors rose. Louder marketing, faster promises, lower prices that didn't make sense. "They're copying the surface," Austin said one afternoon, fingers steepled on his desk. "Not the structure." Paige nodded. "That's where we win." Still, the company needed reinforcement. Austin hired Marcus Hale for operations. He was steady, experienced, focused on efficiency. Evan Brooks for finance. He was precise, cautious, protective. Then Lydia Rose arrived for strategy. She didn't dominate the room, she waited. And when she spoke, people listened. "We are responding instead of leading," she said calmly in a strategy meeting. "We shouldn't compete on noise. We already have trust." Austin leaned forward. "So what do you suggest we do?" "We reposition," Lydia said. "We sell reliability as identity." The plan was clean, focused, sharp. Paige listened closely to what she was saying. Then one day, checking the reports again, it worked. Lydia's idea worked. Contracts locked in. Clients committed long-term. Profits surged not by thousands, but by millions. Austin leaned on Lydia more. Paige noticed, not threatened, aware. Growth demanded presence. Their dates became shorter, sometimes postponed, sometimes replaced with quiet evenings and takeout. Austin tried to make sure Paige never felt forgotten. Messages came through late nights. "This season is heavy, but I'm not losing sight of you. We're winning because of the foundation we built. You matter more than the numbers." Paige read his messages slowly. She replied just as carefully. "I see you. Do what you need to do. I'm here." Still, something shifted inside her. Not jealousy, absence, the quiet kind. She found herself replaying earlier nights along dinners, the walks, the way time used to stretch when they were together. She missed that ease. One evening, after a shorter than usual dinner, Paige sat alone for a moment before going inside. She realized something gently, almost shyly. She was falling in love with him again. And with that realization came a longing she hadn't allowed herself to name yet. She didn't want reassurance. She wanted time. Time with him. A longing of wanting to feel close to him again. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. The kind of afternoon where nothing feels like it's about to change. Austin called Paige into his office, his tone casual, almost relieved. He slid a document across the desk towards her. "I want to show you something," he said. "A new contract. It could help us move forward faster." Paige sat down and picked it up the way she always did, with intention. She read carefully. The language was clean. The structure made sense. The numbers aligned with what they had been seeing since the repositioning. On the surface, it looked like another smart step forward. "This looks fine," she said finally. Austin nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Everything Lydia's worked on so far has delivered," he said. "I trust her judgment." Paige nodded. She trusted Lydia's results. She trusted Austin's leadership. At least, she thought she did. Later that evening, long after most of the office had gone quiet, Paige opened the contract again. Not because she was suspicious, because she was thorough. She read slower this time, line by line, clause by clause, letting the language sit instead of pass. Halfway through, she paused. Nothing was obviously wrong, but something didn't rest the way it should have. She leaned back in her chair, eyes lifting to the ceiling, feeling that familiar tightening in her chest, the feeling she had learned, over years, never to ignore. Something here doesn't protect us the way it should. She closed the document and sat still for a long moment. "I need to talk to him," she thought. Not to argue, to understand. Paige asked him to dinner, casually. "We need to eat anyway," she said lightly over the phone. "I want to talk to you about something." Austin sighed softly on the other end. "Tonight's rough," he said. "Can we do tomorrow?" Tomorrow came. Then another delay. Then another. Each time, Austin sounded sincere, apologetic, tired. "I promise we'll talk," he said once. "I just need to get through this week." Paige didn't accuse him. She didn't push. But with each postponed conversation, the weight she was carrying grew heavier, not just about the contract, but about them. She began to feel like she was holding something important alone. One evening, when Austin finally called late, his voice worn thin but gentle, Paige listened quietly. I'm still at the office, he said. I'll probably be here a while. That's okay, she replied. And it was. But after the call ended, Paige sat in the quiet and realized how much she missed him. Not dramatically, just honestly. She missed the long dinners, the unhurried walks, the way time used to feel wide when they were together. She told herself not to be unfair. He was building something, carrying pressure, managing growth. Still, her heart didn't run on logic. It ran on closeness. Paige couldn't wait anymore. The feeling in her chest had sharpened, not into fear, but into certainty. When Austin stepped out of the office that afternoon, phone still in hand, jacket half on, Paige was already there. "Austin," she said, reaching for his arm. He turned, surprised by the urgency in her voice. "We need to talk," she said, not gently, not angrily, just honestly. He studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's go somewhere." They sat across from each other, in a small cafe not far from the office. Warm lights, soft music, the kind of place where conversations felt exposed, even when voices stayed low. Paige didn't ease into it. "I need to talk to you about the contract," she said. Austin nodded. "Okay? I know I told you it looked fine," she continued, "and structurally it does. But the more I sit with it, the more unsettled I feel." He frowned slightly. "You didn't say that before." "I know," she said, "because I didn't feel it before. But now I do." She shook her head, frustrated not with him, but with how hard it was to explain something she felt before she could prove it. "I can't point to one clause yet," she said. "I just know something doesn't line up with how we usually protect ourselves." Austin leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "But everything Lydia's brought so far has worked," he said. "Every single thing." "I'm not denying that," Paige replied. "I'm saying this feels different." Silence stretched between them. Then Austin spoke again, quieter but sharper. "So why reconsider now?" he asked. He hesitated, then said it anyway. "Is this because I've been working so closely with her?" Paige froze. "What are you saying?" she said. He kept going, not realizing yet what he was doing. "You've seen how much time this has taken," he said. "Are you?" He stopped, then finished the thought. "Are you jealous?" The word landed hard. Paige's face changed, not with anger, not with tears, with offense. "I am not jealous," she said, her voice low and steady. "And I can't believe you'd think that." She stood. "This isn't about her," she said. "This is about you not listening to me." She didn't wait for his response. She walked out. Austin stayed in the cafe long after Paige left. The coffee sat untouched between his hands, growing cold without him noticing. The word he had said, jealous, replayed in his mind again and again, each time landing worse than before. He hadn't meant it the way it came out. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the look on her face when he said it. Not anger, not drama, something quieter, something wounded. He pulled out his phone. "I didn't mean that." No response. "Paige, I'm sorry that came out wrong." "Nothing," he called, straight to voicemail. His chest tightened, the way it does when you realize you may have damaged the one place that felt like shelter. He didn't think through his next move. He just drove. He drove straight to her house, and when Paige opened the door, she didn't look angry. She looked tired. "I'm sorry," Austin said immediately. He didn't wait for her to invite him in. He didn't soften it. "I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean it." Paige stepped back slightly, letting him speak. "I was frustrated," he continued, "and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. You were doing your job. You are just trying to protect the company, and me." She crossed her arms loosely, listening. "I accused you instead of listening," he said, voice low now. "And I hate that I did that to you." There was a pause, the kind where both people feel how fragile the moment is. Then Austin said, quieter, more honest than before, "Please, let me take you out, right now. Let me try to make this right." Paige studied his face for a long moment. She wasn't deciding whether she loved him. She was deciding whether she could trust the apology. Finally, she nodded. "Okay," she said. They drove with the windows down. No music. No destination at first. Just movement, like Austin needed the road to keep carrying them forward while he caught his breath. They ate somewhere simple, familiar, warm. Conversation came slowly at first, like both of them were relearning how to speak, without stepping on something fragile. Austin reached across the table and took Paige's hand. "I love you," he said. "I really do." Paige looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "I know," she said quietly. He brushed his thumb across her knuckles, a gesture that had always felt natural. Between them, "I don't want this season to cost me you," he said. "I can handle pressure. I can't handle losing you." Later, they walked somewhere quiet. The air was cool. Austin stopped and held her face gently in his hands. "I haven't been sleeping," he admitted, "because I miss you." "I never doubted that you loved me," she said softly. "I doubted whether you were hearing me." That truth settled between them. When they returned to her place, the night's tenderness followed them inside. But so did the contract. Austin brought it up carefully, like he didn't want to fracture what they had just repaired. "I need you to see this the way I do," he said. "The numbers make sense. Everything Lydia's touched has worked." Paige shook her head slowly. "Austin," she said, "please listen to me. I don't know exactly what's wrong yet, but something is." He rubbed his temples. "This feels irresponsible not to sign," he admitted. "We're moving fast, we can't stall." Paige stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to stall," she said. "I'm asking you to slow down." Austin looked torn, exhausted, afraid. "I love you," he said. "But I can't wait." He left shortly after. Paige stood in the quiet after the door closed, feeling the warmth of the evening dissolve back into the same heavy certainty. The next morning, Paige woke with clarity. The night hadn't changed what she felt. If anything, it had confirmed it. At work, she stayed sharp, professional, focused, but she felt the shift. Meetings moving around her instead of through her. Decisions accelerating without her voice fully present. One afternoon, she walked past Austin's office and stopped. The door was open. The contract lay on his desk, neatly arranged, ready. Her heart dropped, not with panic but with certainty. She stepped inside. "Austin, what are you doing?" she said. He looked up and smiled faintly. "I'm just finishing something. I'll be right back." He stood and grabbed his jacket. "Restroom," he added casually. Paige nodded. Alone, she stared at the document. She didn't know how to explain the feeling. She only knew she couldn't let him sign without protection. When Austin returned, he sat down without ceremony. He picked up a pen, signed Paige, said nothing. She stayed still, her hands folded, her face calm. The decision had already been made. After Austin signed the contract, he was summoned to court. The letter had been formal and cold, filled with words that assumed context he didn't have. Ownership clarification. Contract enforcement. Nothing in it explained why he was here, sitting in a courtroom that felt sealed shut, before he ever entered. Paige was there. So were a few employees. They sat together, quiet, composed, as if calm might somehow protect them. Austin took his seat near the front, waiting for someone, anyone, to explain what this was really about. Then he saw Lydia. She wasn't sitting with them. She was across the room, with attorneys he didn't recognize. And beside her sat a man Austin had never seen before. Something tightened in his chest, not fear, recognition. This wasn't procedural. This was positional. The judge entered. Everyone stood, then sat down. The room settled into a silence. The opposing attorney rose. "This matter concerns the enforcement of a strategic partnership agreement and the resulting transfer of controlling ownership." Austin's brow furrowed, slightly. "Transfer?" The attorney continued, voice even unhurried. "The agreement in question restructures equity holdings within the company." The words sounded clean, neutral, almost harmless. Then the attorney lifted the document. "Under the terms of this agreement, Mr. Austin Brown's ownership interest is reduced to a minority position." The pause came next, just long enough. 10%. The number didn't register at first. 10. Austin stared forward, his mind reaching instinctively for another number. Any number that made sense. 5149. Anything but 10. But the word stayed where it landed. 10%. The room seemed to pull further away, and the remaining 90%, the attorney continued. "Vests with the partnership group represented here, including Ms. Lydia Rose and her investment partner." Austin's eyes moved slowly to the man beside Lydia. A stranger. A stranger who now apparently owned almost everything Austin had built. His company, his years, his life. A thought hit him, sharp and immediate. I trusted her. And right behind it, another quieter and crueler, Paige warned me. The cafe replayed in his mind, her steady voice, the way she had asked him to slow down, the look on her face when he accused her. The word jealous echoed now like a bruise he hadn't noticed forming. The attorney continued, explaining governance rights and voting authority, but Austin barely heard it. Everything had narrowed to one truth. He had almost signed all his life's work away. The judge finally spoke. Mr. Brown, the judge said evenly, do you dispute the validity of the agreement as presented? Austin opened his mouth, then closed it. What was there to say? The damage had already been done. The judge looked down at the document again. The room held its breath. The judge frowned slightly. There is no signature on this contract, the judge said slowly. A murmur moved through the courtroom. The judge continued, precise and measured. Without a valid signature, this court has no evidence that ownership was legally transferred. This matter cannot proceed in its current form. Austin's head lifted, stunned. The judge raised the gavel. This case is adjourned, pending further review. The sound echoed once, and that was it. Not victory, interruption. Austin sat there, frozen. He didn't feel relief, he felt disoriented. Because he had signed it, he knew he had. He turned slowly toward Paige. His voice came out low, shaken. But I signed it, he said. Paige, you know I signed it. You were there. Paige met his eyes. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look triumphant. She looked like someone who had been carrying a weight for too long. I know, she said quietly. Austin's confusion sharpened. Then how can this be? He stopped and swallowed. How is there no signature? Paige inhaled. I switched the pen, she said. The words landed softly, but they hit him hard. When you stepped out of your office, she continued, I switched it. The pen is a vanishing ink pen. It writes clearly, but after some minutes, it vanishes. Austin stared at her. You did, his voice cracked. You did that. Yes, she said. I didn't know what else to do. The courtroom noise faded around them. Austin looked at her, torn between disbelief and something heavier. You saved me, he whispered. Paige didn't smile. I did, she said. And that's why I can't stay. And in that moment, Austin understood something devastating and unavoidable. Even though the court had paused the loss, he had already lost something far more fragile. Austin realized that there was nothing that he could say to let Paige stay. He felt heartbroken. After Paige left, Austin didn't slow down. If anything, he accelerated. He arrived earlier than everyone else, left later, took calls no one else wanted, sat through meetings that ran long and demanded precision. Austin rewrote contracts himself, reading every clause with a care that bordered on obsession. Safeguards were layered where trust had once lived. Systems were rebuilt, processes tightened, vulnerabilities sealed. From the outside it looked like leadership sharpened by experience. From the inside it felt like avoidance. Austin told himself he was doing what needed to be done, that the company deserved focus, that this was the cost of survival. But the truth was quieter and harder to admit. Work was the only place where he didn't have to feel how empty everything else had become. The office became his only refuge, not because it comforted him, but because it distracted him. He stopped going to the places he and Paige used to go, took different routes home, avoided the park entirely. Some nights he stayed in his office long after the building emptied. The lights dimmed, the air hummed softly. His desk stayed immaculate, screens closed, nothing out of place. And still, something felt wrong. He noticed it in the smallest moments. A decision would go well, and there would be no one to celebrate with. A problem would be solved, and the relief would fade immediately. Success no longer settled, it just passed through him without landing. One evening, while reviewing a revised contract, Austin paused. Paige's voice surfaced in his mind, not accusing, not sharp. Slow down. He closed his eyes. She had always been his balance. The one who asked the questions that made systems stronger. The one who saw risk before it showed itself. And now she was gone. Not because the company failed, because he had failed to listen. That realization stayed with him. Not as guilt, but as clarity. One night, alone in the office bathroom, Austin stared at his reflection longer than usual. He looked the same, but he felt altered. I kept the company, he said quietly, and lost the person who made it worth keeping. The words settled without resistance. For the first time, he stopped working. Not just for the night, but for a moment. And in that pause, something shifted. The truth he had been circling finally stood still long enough to be seen. He didn't want success if it meant building alone. He wanted Paige, not as an employee, not as protection, as his partner. And once he knew that, there was no unknowing it. He closed his laptop, turned off the lights, and for the first time since the courtroom, he went home without opening his phone. Austin didn't go back right away. He needed to be certain that what was pulling him wasn't fear of being alone, but deep passionate love. So he waited. Not weeks, not months. Just long enough to hear himself clearly. When he finally drove back, the road felt longer than he remembered. Not because of distance, but because every mile gave him time to replay what he hadn't said when it mattered. He parked and sat in the car for a moment, hands resting on the wheel, breathing slowly. Don't defend yourself, he told himself. Tell the truth. When he saw her standing outside, sunlight soft against her shoulders, something in him steadied, not with confidence, but with humility. She turned and saw him and didn't walk away. Austin didn't start with explanations. He started with the truth he had avoided. I've been lonely, he said quietly. Not the kind you fix with work. The kind that shows up when the office is quiet and there's no one left to pretend for. Paige stilled. I spent nights sitting in rooms I built, he continued, voice low, unguarded, and realizing they felt empty without you. He swallowed. I told myself I was being strong, but I wasn't. I was hiding. And I punished the one person who saw me clearly. He met her eyes. I accused you because I couldn't bear the thought that you were right, that slowing down wouldn't cost me success, but ignoring you would cost me everything. His voice broke just enough. I missed you every day, he said. In the silence, in the decisions, in the wins I couldn't celebrate. He paused. I don't want to be impressive without you, he said. I want to be honest with you. Paige's breath trembled. I loved you through all of it, she said softly. I loved you when you pulled away. I loved you when I had to leave so I wouldn't disappear inside your life. Her tears fell freely now. I wasn't asking you to save me, she said. I was asking you to see me. Austin stepped closer, slow, careful, restrained. I see you now, he said. And I'm sorry it took losing you to learn how. Silence followed, not broken, answered. And for the first time since everything shattered, Paige didn't feel like she was standing alone in her love. Silence stayed with them, not awkward, not unsure. Austin didn't rush to fill it. He let the closeness sit of what had finally been said. Then he reached for her hand, slow. And when she didn't pull away, his thumb brushed lightly against her knuckles, grounding himself. I don't want to leave this moment and go back to who I was, he said quietly. I don't want to fix this, and then forget how close I came to losing you. Paige looked at him, eyes wet, steady. I don't want a life where I succeed and lose the one person who makes me honest, he continued. I don't want to build anything unless you're heard inside it. He took a breath, not dramatic, just real. I don't want you as something I almost had, he said. I want you as the life I choose. He stepped back slightly, then lowered himself to one knee. No crowd, no performance. Just the sound of his breath and the way her hand flew to her mouth. Paige Carter, he said, voice steady but full. I choose you, not because you saved me, but because you steady me. He looked up at her. I choose your honesty, your pauses, your courage. I choose the way you love, carefully, fully, without pretending. Will you marry me? Paige didn't answer right away. She was crying now, not breaking, not overwhelmed, just open. Yes, she said softly. Then she nodded, needing him to hear it again. Yes. Austin stood, hands trembling now, and pulled her into him, not tight, not rushed, just close enough to feel her breathing steady against his chest. He rested his forehead against hers. Thank you, he whispered, for not letting me lose myself. She smiled through tears. You found your way back, she said. Austin took Paige's hands, but this time he didn't speak immediately. His thumbs brushed over her knuckles, slow, grounding, like he was reminding himself she was real. The wedding day arrived. Austin held Paige's hand and said, voice low, I have loved you in silence, in restraint, in moments where every part of me wanted to reach for you, and I chose not to, because I wanted to honor you more than I wanted relief. Her breath caught. I promise to listen to you the way your heart deserves, he continued. To pause when you pause. To protect what you feel before I protect what I build. Paige swallowed, then lifted her chin. Austin, she said, steady but full. I loved you when it was easy, and I loved you when it hurt. Her fingers tightened around his. I loved you when you were strong, and when you were overwhelmed. I loved you when you didn't see yourself clearly, and when I had to walk away to breathe. Her voice softened, not weaker, truer. I never wanted perfection. I wanted presence. I wanted to be heard and chosen, not later, not eventually, but now. She stepped closer. I love the way you're learning, she said. The way you stop. The way you look at me like my words matter. I choose you, she said. Not because you need me, but because you see me. Austin closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were glassy. I've wanted to kiss you for so long, he admitted quietly. So many moments I had to turn away. So many times I told myself, not yet, not like this, not until it's right. He leaned his forehead against hers, breath uneven. I didn't want our first kiss to come from longing alone, he whispered. I wanted it to come from trust. Paige's eyes closed. It does, she breathed. He kissed her then. Slow, intentional, unrestrained but not rushed. His hand rested at her back, steady, protective, like he was holding something precious, not taking it. Their kiss carried everything they had held back. Love, forgiveness, devotion, released gently, without fear. When they parted, Austin stayed close, forehead still touching hers, breathing her in. That was worth waiting for, he whispered. Paige smiled through tears. Yes, she said softly. It was, and in that stillness, it was clear. This wasn't a love built on urgency. It was built on choosing each other again and again.